In August 2024, more than 100 protesters were arrested at various demonstrations in Uganda and Tanzania opposing the EACOP project. Impacted communities and activists held these protests to voice their opposition to the proposed construction of the mega oil pipeline, which has faced long-standing controversies over its significant social and environmental impacts. In this video, we will take a closer look at why this project has been so controversial, and what actions have been taken by different stakeholders that have led to the current situation. Watch till the end as we delve deeper into complexities surrounding the EACOP project and its latest developments. The East African Crude Oil Pipeline, EACOP, is designed to transport crude oil from Uganda's Tilenga and Kingfisher oil fields. Spanning a significant portion of Tanzania, the pipeline ultimately leads to the port of Tanga on the east coast for export. It is owned and operated by oil companies TotalEnergies, which has more than 60% stake, China National Offshore Oil Corporation, CNOOC, and Uganda National Oil Company. Once completed, it will be the longest heated crude oil pipeline in the world, and is expected to have a maximum discharge capacity of 216,000 barrels per day. Initial plans were for the construction to begin in 2017, but it has faced repeated delays, increasing costs, and growing controversy over its social, environmental, and climate impacts. The immediate impacts of EACOP and its related projects are on the thousands of people living along the proposed pipeline route and upstream construction sites. The pipeline will pass through more than 400 villages in Uganda and Tanzania. Many of these communities rely on agriculture, livestock, hunting, fishing, and forestry for livelihood, making them highly susceptible to land loss due to the construction of EACOP. Although the proposed pipeline will be only 2 feet wide and buried about 2 meters deep, its land impact will be significant. Construction will require at least a 30-meter wide right-of-way along the entire pipeline, cutting through farmland and keeping the area clear of buildings, trees, and crops to accommodate over 80 control stations for pumping, heating, and pressurizing oil. Consequently, many residents in affected villages will lose the land essential for their livelihoods, with some needing permanent relocation. For the upstream Tilenga and EACOP projects, TotalEnergies estimates that 764 primary residences will need to be relocated, affecting a total of 18,000 people. However, watchdog groups argue this figure is greatly underestimated. One estimate suggests that up to 120,000 individuals may be directly affected by EACOP and its associated projects, more than 6 times the estimate by the company. The companies have promised that those whose homes need to be relocated will receive replacement houses of a higher standard. Others affected will be offered cash compensation, along with other in-kind compensations. However, according to a report by Human Rights Watch, these commitments have often not been fulfilled. A significant challenge is that in much of rural Uganda, official land ownership records are scarce, as many families inherited their customary land from their ancestors. For example, in early 2000s, prior to the oil discovery, Hoima district received only 14 applications for land registration. After the discovery, this number surged to 1,235, with many residents finding their customary lands officially registered without their knowledge. And according to recent reports, many local residents living in the upstream Kingfisher project area, operated by CNOOC, have been forcibly evicted without compensation, coerced into selling their land at extremely low prices, and deprived of their livelihoods. Residents report threats, intimidation, and violence, including sexual violence, by soldiers of the Uganda People's Defense Forces deployed by the government. Workers also complain of safety issues and demands for bribes to obtain jobs. The EACOP and its associated projects also pose an enormous risk to the nature and climate. The route of EACOP passes through some of the most ecologically diverse and wildlife-rich areas. Nearly 2,000 square kilometers of protected wildlife habitats would be considerably affected. Notably, one of TotalEnergies' Tilenga oil fields is situated within Murchison Falls National Park, often regarded as one of Uganda's most stunning national parks. These habitats host numerous endangered species including the eastern chimpanzee and African elephant, along with lions, buffalo, hippos, giraffes, and zebras, all of which face risks of significant habitat disturbance, fragmentation, and increased poaching due to the pipeline's construction and operation. Additionally, the project poses a threat of heavy deforestation in such an ecologically rich area. For over 400 kilometers, the pipeline will also run alongside Lake Victoria, Africa's largest lake. The Lake Victoria Basin, which supports the livelihoods of more than 30 million people in the region, is at high risk of pollution and degradation from oil spills and other infrastructure-related impacts. Making matters worse, the proposed route ends at a coastline where massive oil tankers will be filled while floating near marine protected areas, abundant in mangroves and coral reefs, home to dugongs, dolphins, and sea turtles. In response to these and other concerns, companies behind EACOP have produced several environmental and social impact assessments reports. However, these assessments for EACOP and its upstream projects have faced significant criticism from independent experts for being inadequate, particularly due to the lack of a comprehensive emergency response plan in case of an oil spill, which is not unlikely for a project like this. Once completed, EACOP has the potential of not only transporting oil from Uganda, but also extending its reach into its neighbors, and facilitate the export of oil from nearby countries such as the Democratic Republic of Congo, Tanzania, and South Sudan, thereby potentially promoting increased extraction from the region. For example, the DRC announced that it was in discussions with Uganda for possible use of EACOP to export its own oil reserves near the border of the two nations. In preparation for this potential, the DRC government has already started to pave the way for drilling more within the Congo rainforest, the world's second largest after the Amazon. But fossil fuel extraction in Africa is already significant, with nearly 10% of the continent covered by production fields, and an additional 28% threatened by proposed projects. This includes 64 million hectares of dense forest in the Congo Basin, an area larger than the entire country of Thailand, to have devastating consequences for the climate and the 35 million people, including indigenous communities, living in those areas. Therefore, if completed, EACOP may become the catalyst for a major carbon and human rights crisis linked to the Congo Basin's untapped oil resources. Apart from posing severe risks to the people, wildlife, and ecosystems in the region, EACOP also contributes significantly to global warming. Both Uganda and Tanzania are signatories to the Paris Agreement, which aims to limit global temperature increases to well below 2 degrees Celsius. According to the Climate Accountability Institute, EACOP could generate approximately 307 tons of carbon dioxide emissions over 25 years, with peak annual emissions more than twice the current total for both countries. However, the environmental assessments provided by the companies behind EACOP focus only on the emission from the pipeline's construction and operation, overlooking over 98% of the total emissions, including those from transporting, refining, and most significantly, from the use of the oil by end consumers. That's why experts have said EACOP's potential impact may be underestimated and labeled the project a mid-sized climate bomb. Given the magnitude and breadth of EACOP's potential harms, the opposition to the project has been broad and intense. For many years, local residents, as well as activists both from the area and abroad, have spoken out against EACOP. Thousands have peacefully protested against the pipeline's environmental and human costs, and many in Uganda have been threatened or arrested for doing so. The Stop EACOP Coalition, comprising over 260 civil society organizations, highlights the costs of EACOP to people and nature. They are urging international investors, banks, and insurance companies to withdraw their support, aiming to deprive EACOP of the corporate and political backing it requires. As of June 2023, at least 27 banks and 22 large insurers have ruled out financial or insurance support to the pipeline project. Ugandan authorities in 2021 suspended the operations of 54 NGOs, including some of those involved in Stop EACOP. For a good number of years, the consortium behind EACOP has faced obstacles in completing the project. They have yet to secure a $3 billion project finance loan to move forward with construction, along with access to sufficient insurance. Historically, receiving such financial support would not be a problem for a company like TotalEnergies, but as the result of the sustained international pressure campaign and organized local opposition, 9 out of TotalEnergies' 10 largest financiers have announced that they will not support the project. Indeed, as of June 2023, almost 30 major international banks have ruled out financing EACOP. Only South Africa's Standard Bank and the ICBC of China are currently financial advisors to the project, but they are expected to need another dozen or more banks to join them to secure the necessary $3 billion required. In June 2024, Standard Bank announced its decision to contribute with funding for the $5 billion pipeline after a lengthy review process. The bank's chairperson told Bloomberg that all the lenders needed for the project have been secured. Though she declined to disclose their names, many expect that the additional capital to be coming from Chinese investments. The bank anticipates that TotalEnergies will make an announcement in the following months, noting that field developments are already in progress. This announcement has partly sparked a new wave of protests against EACOP in Uganda, Tanzania, and other countries, leading to more arrests in recent months. One of these protests occurred outside AIG's office in New York, where demonstrators opposed the company's failure to rule out providing insurance services for EACOP. The impacts of large-scale infrastructure project we have covered in this video are indeed not unique to EACOP. As noted by the OHCHR, mega infrastructure investments have a documented history of causing serious human rights violations. To mitigate the human rights and environmental risks associated with mega infrastructure projects like EACOP, companies must take full responsibility and implement the following actions. 1. Conduct thorough human rights and environmental impact assessments before project initiation to identify risks. Establish a framework for ongoing due diligence, including monitoring and reporting mechanisms to address potential violations. 2. Engage stakeholders. Actively involve local communities, indigenous groups, and other stakeholders in the planning process to ensure their concerns are heard and addressed. 3. Develop accessible grievance mechanisms for affected communities to report concerns and seek redress for any violations. And 4. Commit to transparency in operations and decision-making processes, and provide regular updates to stakeholders about project developments and impacts. These strategies not only protect communities but can also enhance the long-term viability of infrastructure projects. So, what do you think? How can large infrastructure projects like EACOP balance development with human rights? Are the companies behind EACOP doing enough to address concerns of the communities affected by the project? Let us know in the comments below. Give us a thumbs up and subscribe to channel CSR for more videos about responsible business practices.